Hey guys, welcome to another East Coast Rams podcast. I am one of your co-host Ashton here with my awesome co-host Zach. Oh guys. There's different types of losses and different types of pain that comes with being a fan of this team. And don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be pre 2016. But Zach, this one hurt. This one hurt at least to me as much, probably not as bad, but almost as much as that Bills uh 2020 game. I think it was 2020. The comeback would have been the largest comeback in Rams history.
Sure. Yeah. No, I remember that game. I find it slightly different. I'm actually coming out of that game. I'm slightly more optimistic. I feel like going into this season, we all circled. There's going to be a circle of games that we thought that we were not going to be able to win. This Ravens game was one of those games that we knew that this was going to be a tough competition. And I feel like going in throughout this whole entire season, still week by week, we kept saying, well, we can only afford to lose a couple games. We know we're going to lose against, the Ravens, and we're probably going to lose again against the 49ers. And that's just what we've known. I mean, this is almost since week one. We've said the exact same thing over and over again. And yes, it's just disappointing that we lost. And especially the way we lost, because we were so close being able to be able to take a win out of that one. But this team was different than it has been in other games. They played really well pretty much the entire game. Yes, there was a couple of miscues on the defensive side. We'll talk about that. There was, a couple things on the special teams that needs to be worked out on. But as a whole, the defense played really well when they needed to, and the offenses played really well pretty much the entire game. And then we did have some special team success. So we did have a lot of things that put us in the right spot. And just unfortunate that we actually did not get the win. But I came out of it more positive than negative.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think this game kind of encapsulates the team and the season in a single game very well. A lot of sparks, a lot of good things, a good amount of bad things to learn from, and some slight execution errors and inability to be consistent with your play. And when it happens, inability to take advantage of the other team in a bad situation. Uh, we'll talk about a lot of stuff. We'll talk about the block in the back that wasn't called. We'll talk about, the run game, their run game, a lot of things to talk about. But let's just say, I don't know about you, Zach, but I'm proud of this team, the way they played this number one defense these last 2 weeks, the way this team has played against, people can argue, the Super Bowl favorite, if not tied there with the 49ers. And we've been in every game, and this was no different outside of the Cowboys game.
100%.
This team has spunk, it has fight. We just have to be able to close out stuff. And I feel like this young team is growing. And if they're missing a slight something, I feel like some of it is edge on defense, and on offense, I feel like it's just better execution from the overall line. And if we get those two things on both sides of the ball, this team, man, they would be contenders.
Yeah.
Very easily.
For sure. I 100% agree with you on all those points. This is a young team. We all knew that going into this is whatever you want to call it, the retool, the remodel, whatever. They're far beyond going what they thought they were going, or they knew what they had inside. It was the rest of the world that was trying to catch up with them and realize what talent they actually had on this team. And they hit all their marks on their draft and with getting Puka and Byron and Steve Avila and Kobe Turner, and the list goes on about the hits that they kept getting in there. But before we kind of dive into that game specifically, let's kind of break down some of the news that's happened post game. And actually, the first topic kind of goes pre-game, post game. So Mason Crosby, who the Rams brought onto the practice squad just a week ago, not even a week ago, 6 days ago. They signed him to the practice squad. Friday, Sean McVay comes out and says, we're probably not going into the direction of utilizing Crosby for Sunday's game. Kind of told us all that maybe, Lucas kind of had the better practice going into Friday. Saturday morning comes. We get news that Crosby has been activated to the 53-man roster. And so now everyone's changing their page and being like, oh, what happened between Sean McVay's press conference and to then? And then Sunday comes around, he's inactive for the game. And now Tuesday, he's been cut from the team. So kind of a very whirlwind experience in that time frame. What is your kind of thoughts about this whole Crosby's journey within the last 6 days with the Rams? Didn't miss
I think it's
Rams.
I think it's less about Crosby and more about basically lighting a fire under Lucas, like basically saying like we're not afraid to cut you, and like nothing focuses the mind like potentially losing your job, and it was getting to a point where his kicks, even when they were being made, weren't pretty, and I'm not like it was the same thing with Maher, but I always felt like Maher had more distance. Lucas, I'm still concerned about his distance and his strength, but he made all his kicks in not easy situations.
Yeah, I mean, he dealt with. I mean, this past week he dealt in Baltimore with rain and wind and all that weather that was coming there. The ball was wet and slippery and things like that. But like you said, he made all 3 of his field goals. One of them was a 51-yarder and both of his extra points. So definitely a positive spin. Probably the only positive really on the special teams this week was Lucas Haversick. And so so kudos to him for keeping the job. And like you said, I think it does come down to that. It was that mentality that he had, knowing that he was now competing for his job, to kind of boost him and to kind of, get his mentalness right to make all those kicks. So even Sean McVay, he said in his press conference afterwards that, this is what he needed. He needed somebody to come in and kind of compete with him for the job. Because, I mean, basically they just fired Maher and brought in Haversick. He made some good kicks and then all of a sudden went downhill from there. But now that he had some competition, he had some good practices, he had a good game. Hopefully this just boosts his confidence going forward, and hopefully into the postseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kickers historically are almost always terrible their first year. Like, not great, I would say. It's only in their second and third year. It's very rare.
Other than the Cowboys kicker, who's now 100% as a rookie. I mean, he's a crazy good.
They did draft him.
They did. I mean, he was a 6th rounder, I believe. So, it was, that's expected when you draft a kicker that, he should be good. With that, we did have some bad news in our special teams that our long snapper, Alex Ward, was placed on IR after a stinger on Sunday, meaning that the Rams had to pick up free agent Carson Tinker. So he will be our long snapper. Hopefully that doesn't cause too many issues, especially with Lucas Haversick. You really need someone to be able to set the ball well, to be able to kick well. So hopefully that will be that won't be such a problem. He was a former Ram. He played in 2021 for the Rams as their long snapper for most of the season, I believe, up until the very end. Really, other than that, there wasn't really any other big news. They're hoping to get Tyler Higbee back. So we'll see. He's more day to day. But do you want to talk about the Ravens game first, or do you want to talk about the playoff picture first?
We can talk about Ravens game and kind of roll that into the conversation.
Sure. All right, let's start. So the Ravens did end up winning 37-31 in a tight overtime game. And this game went really well to start off with. The Rams,
Mhm.
the Ravens got the ball first. We got a pretty quick out on the defense. The Rams came, drove the ball pretty far down the field, couldn't get it into the end zone, had to settle for a field goal. The Ravens came back, and they were able to. I think, didn't they even get a stop before they got their second touchdown to end the second quarter? So it it was a good start for the defense. I mean, being able to hold this offense, who's been pretty explosive, having Lamar Jackson, being able to avoid sacks, which he did this whole entire time. Whether you believe that the ref should have been calling holding the whole time on the Ram or on the offensive line, not going to talk about that much, but the Rams played a really good defensive game, at least in the first quarter. There was a couple miscues, obviously, that led to the two of their touchdowns, but overall, I thought the defense played pretty well.
Yeah, just one note on the refs. Let's be fair to the refs. They called a pretty physical game for both teams consistently, and I will say they at least were consistent about not doing flags for a lot of stuff.
I know, but it felt like there was a lot more holding calls it felt like the Rams were being held almost every single play. I mean, yeah, I know Lamar Jackson's great and everything like that, but he was in the pocket for a long time before he had to scramble out, and it felt like that offensive line was holding, whether it was Aaron Donald or Kobe Turner, things like that. So,
Yeah.
things to look at, but again, all refs. There's been a lot of ref controversy. That's not probably this game wasn't really the least of my concerns, but we move on. So yeah, any other what are some of your thoughts about this game? What do you want to break down?
Oh man. I would say for the thing that caught my eye and still is in my brain is the safeties went from having one of their best games last week to having one of their worst games of the year. It is against a really talented defense in bad kind of conditions, and you're having to play the run more and you're trying to sell out for the run. So I understand. I understand from that perspective. But man, Zach, John Johnson, he was getting toasted like toast. He was crispy, getting constantly burnt. Their first two touchdowns, when they were anemic on offense, the Rams outplayed them. And it was literally these two plays, but that's all you need. Two big splash plays, passes, and
Honestly, so a couple of those plays, especially the two that OBJ caught, I don't think any other receiver on that team would have caught those balls. I think it was because OBJ is so good, because he had to turn his body, and that off those receivers that they have are so young that I don't think that none of them would have been that aware to be able to make those plays. So the OBJ touchdown and the one prior to that where he caught it kind of on the sidelines, he both had to look and then had to adjust his body the other direction to actually make those catches. Obviously, the two of those touchdowns were miscues by the offense. It was a completely busted play. They just were not in sync in what they were trying to accomplish, and that definitely needs to get cleaned up. But you're right, John Johnson did not have a great night. Defense looked shaky at times, but they were still playing pretty dominant. I mean, when you're able to, force the Ravens to punt multiple times in this game, push them back and get a safety, their second safety in 2 weeks. It's great to see those types of plays, and that some of these players like Kobe Turner are actually making really good plays when they can, especially on a mobile quarterback like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, just really well done around. I thought our DBs, for the most part, did a solid job, seeing they were throwing 70% of the time.
Which was weird. I thought it was
Well,
weird.
It's because our the way stacking the box, we're stacking the box against them, so they were having to.
It was hilarious to watch the first half at least, where the Rams seem to be running the ball most of the time when they're a pass heavy team, and the reverse for the Ravens when they're a run heavy team, they were passing the ball. Just very interesting um, aspects of things.
Outside of the red zone, where we had 3 passing plays in a row.
Don't get me started about the whole we went 9 straight, and then when we get to the red zone, we throw 3 times and have to settle for a field goal. I can't tell you why we do these things to ourselves, but we
I agree
do.
with it on first down. I thought first down is a tendency breaker. You're trying to catch them off color defense. Second down, I do not agree with. I think you should have did probably a run. Our screen game was not working this weekend. Not there. I'm surprised we didn't see any jet sweeps. I don't know if I'm misremembering. I don't remember a jet sweep, and like I feel like that could have been a tool to help.
It
To
could have been, but I don't know if it was weather related why they didn't do that. I'm not sure. Maybe they didn't have the pass blockers because Hunter Long went down, and you didn't have Tyler Higbee to help with that kind of shifting the run defense a little bit. That might have been the reasons why you weren't able to do those kinds of plays. That's just my guess. My guess on that.
uh, talking about offense, I mean, Kyron Williams keeps on proving that he's an NFL 3 down back. A lot of good stuff from him there. And let's talk about kind of breakout performance of this game, Zach and Davis Allen. Like a big mistake at the end of the game. Yes, huge mistake. It was one of the reasons the game was cost or like we lost the game. But outside of that, I thought his blocking, I was watching his blocking, his catching, he looked dynamic and aggressive at the point of attack. It just fantastic play by Davis Allen.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
having to really step in, especially when Hunter Long came out. He got what he got 4 passes for 50 yards plus his first TD. So just a really good performance from him. And then, as you mentioned, he did well in the blocking as well. So overall, he played a very tough game, and could definitely see him being that tight end 2 moving forward.
I mean, honestly, I would rather him be tight end 1 personally, but I
That's
think he
not
looks
gonna that's
fantastic.
not gonna happen, at least immediately, with especially with Higbee's recent extension. I don't foresee that happening.
Nopum is on the bench.
Sure, but Tyler Higbee's a little different than Joe Noteboom.
That's another reason I do want to highlight why I think we potentially lost was because Nopum had to come in for Havenstein. I really do think that hurt us on the right side, especially running. I think you noticed it a lot with the push on the right side after Havenstein went out.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I mean, Kyron Williams did have some couple good bursts finally. He had quite a few bursts in the first 9. He kept pushing the ball, but he wasn't explosive until the very end of the game, where he was getting those bigger 10+ yard chunk plays. But yes, I agree. I feel like the right side was definitely the weaker spot once Havenstein went out. Everyone else seemed to do really well in that kind of protection for Stafford and things like that. I
Mhm.
mean, they for the most part kept Stafford pretty clean, so that was good.
What would you say, Zach, on the last drive of the game? Didn't you think there was a defensive holding on Robinson? That's the other thing that caught my eye. It looked like it was defensive holding. We have been called for defensive holding for a lot less.
Sure.
But
This wasn't when he was in the end zone, was it?
yeah, he was in the end zone going to catch it, and then it was on third down, I believe.
Okay.
The last
Uh,
drive of the game. I think it was Demarcus Robinson on a out route to the left side of the field.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't remember that one specifically, but yeah, I remember hearing something about that when I was listening to JV's Long's like when he breaks down players and has the players on. Demarcus Robinson was on there, and I did hear him talk about that, but I didn't hear that specific what play that was.
Yeah.
Um,
It caught my eye because I was like, oh, you know, I think I get the refs not calling it because it wasn't completely impeding, but the ball was in the air and he didn't have a clear opportunity to catch it. So, like by letter of law, it should have been a flag, but it's one of those things they weren't calling that whole game. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. As far as our cornerbacks played really well as well.
yeah,
They only allowed between DK and Witherspoon only allowed 5 receptions each, totaling 122 yards, and they were not one of the ones responsible, obviously, for the TDs. Jordan Fuller was the responsible for 2 of those. Um, so.
I
Um,
think Jordan Fuller was supposed to be handing those guys off. I honestly think that was on John Johnson or trying to think Russ Yeast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think technically they got put on Jordan Fuller, but I think like you kind of alluded to that it was part of a busted coverage that should have gone to John Johnson or
Yeah.
um, one of
They're
them. I think was
supposed to be
Fuller.
handed
Yeah.
off, and John Johnson, I believe for one of them, like came down for some reason. I don't know if he saw something in the formation or he just like kind of kept on going downwards when it looked like he was supposed to be handed off. So
Yeah, and then
we
big.
won't know. So
Yeah, and then big for Withers or for for Witherspoon for catching that interception. That was
oh
also
yeah.
a beautiful play. Totally just jumped up, grabbed it, and moved it down the field and really helped the
Who
Rams. Um,
who dropped the pick six? Was that Ernest Jones? I think it was Ernest Jones.
it might have been. I mean, it was a little high, but yeah, Ernest Jones was just he was another monster this game. He was so close a couple of times getting to Lamar Jackson. Um, it so close, a fraction of a second to get there. He's been playing like an elite level player. So he's going to have his due sometime, but he was like a bull in a china shop getting through that offensive line. He just didn't make it quite in time.
Yeah, him and Aaron Donald, it seemed like Lamar had butter all over him and just slipping and sliding out of there. But good play by him. We take it to OT, get a good 3-and-out, and then Zach, 2 of the worst drops I've seen in a Rams game in a while, just wide open first downs, and Davis Allen drops one, and then I think it was Demarcus Robinson. 2 people who had great games
Yeah, the Davis
dropped.
Allen one I think was too high.
I think as
I
a
think it
tight end
was
like that,
right, but he's a rookie. And that was a quick throw by Stafford. So in part to his defense, he played a lights out game, and I'm not going to let this one play kind of depreciate what he did and what he came in to do. Again, I think it was a little high. Could he have jumped higher? Yes, but I also thought it was such a quick throw. Stafford was such under pressure that he had to throw it off quickly and just wasn't able to get it in the right timing. So yes, could he have gotten it? Sure. But I think it was just kind of a quick fire and he just wasn't ready.
yeah, I just think it's like proving that this young team, a lot of rookies, it just moments missed where I feel like a more veteran player would have potentially made the play. And
Yeah.
they're growing, and we're seeing that, and it's not a bad thing. It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
Also, I do want to point out like McVay should have called a timeout before the clock ran out, the play clock. I thought I just thought after already getting a 3 and out, like, I almost knew the game was over the second we punted, before the return at all. Like, I just thought we should have called the timeout. That's why you have those timeouts in OT. Don't take the 5 yards. Make it easier on your offense.
Yeah, I don't remember why
It was
they.
on second down, and they ran out of because apparently Stafford couldn't hear the
Oh yeah,
play.
they had some they had some communication problems with the helmet. Um, they
The
couldn't.
5 yards in OT is worth more, especially when you only need a field goal in that drive to win. Because all the Ravens need if you punt is a field goal after that.
Sure.
So, like, why not just take the timeout? Because that's the drive you need to win the game. I just didn't understand that at
I
all
know,
on
and
second down, taking that, and then on third down, being at 3rd and 10 versus 3rd and 5. I think it limits your opportunities and plays a lot.
yeah, yeah. And then obviously special teams did not. Tremble had 2 fumbles during this game. Um, Not great, not great. I don't know if it was because of the weather or what, but at
That's
least you were
just unacceptable. Their returner wasn't fumbling.
sure, sure. But well, we don't know the reason exactly why, but he did fumble twice, but he did recover both of them. So at least it didn't cost us anything. But obviously, the bigger play was at the very end when they actually returned the ball in overtime to win the game for the Ravens. Definitely heartbreaking to see it go like that. Obviously, as you mentioned, there was potentially a block in the back that wasn't called
It
towards.
was a block. It was a block in the back that caused the hole. So I mean, it
But that
was
was
a
at
flag.
it was the very end. It was at
No,
the
it wasn't at the very end. There was one right as he's cutting
but I'm
around.
pretty sure if I remember right, there's at least 6 tackles that could have brought him down prior to that block in the back.
Yes, I get that, but he would have that turned a 15-yard gain, which is good for the Ravens, to a touchdown and ends the game.
Right. But, the Rams could have taken care of that, should have taken care of that way sooner than leaving it up to, right
I
before the long snap before the long snapper can get to him.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but like a blocking back caused touchdown, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
The Rams had 2 opportunities to convert that first down in OT. They didn't, and that's
Yep.
why we lost the game.
Yep.
All
So
we needed was a field goal.
I mean, this team obviously we knew kind of going into this that wasn't at its Super Bowl caliber. Can it make a playoff push? Sure. Is it going to? Would it be? And this is where we'll go into this. Is it going to be a dangerous? If we do end up getting into the playoffs, are we a dangerous team? 100%. I think any team that gets into the playoffs is for the most part pretty dangerous. But for kind of like our scrappy little team that seems to be able to play with the big boys, and then also seem to get defeated by not the big boys. So it's a weird team that we have right now, but a lot of potential. But right now sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with Kyron, we have competed with every team we played against. I don't. Was Kyron out for the Cowboys game? I think he
I
was.
believe he was.
So really, with Kyron, he's the secret sauce. Him and Puka and Cup are starting to work together, and McVay had a great game play calling, just fantastic. But if you look at it in total, this team just dropped 30 plus points on the first and second ranked defenses in the league. It is by far a playoff quality team. The execution isn't always there, the finishing isn't always there. But if this team can put it together, I do think we can win out for the rest of the year. And I think this team going into the playoffs, if we get the 7 or 6 seed, it is going to be a very, very dangerous team for the 2 or 3 seed.
Yeah. So right now we're sitting at 8. in the seed rankings. Obviously, only the first 7 get in. 49ers sit on top, Cowboys, Lions, Bucks. And then the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Packers are what kind of go into the wild card slate at this moment. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that are 6-7. Currently in that pack is the Green Bay Packers because they did beat the LA
They
Rams.
lost.
Well, right, but the reason why they're in the 7th seed is because they beat the
Yeah,
LA
yeah.
Rams.
Tiebreaker.
Yeah, because of the tiebreaker. But because they did lose, thank you to the Giants for a great Monday night victory, that they were able to, not move up, and it made a little bit more difficult
Well,
opportunity for the Rams.
so it actually, because it's a 3 or 4-way tie, the head-to-head doesn't count towards it. It's I think conference games,
I'm
and then
pretty.
after
I'm.
that it's what common
Mm,
opponents, because there's like 3 or 4 teams at 6 and 7. Head-to-head doesn't count in that case.
I'm pretty sure it does because we beat the Seahawks and we're above the Seahawks. We haven't faced the Falcons or the Saints. I don't know what the Packers has done, but they're the only ones who have beat us. I don't know if they beat the Seahawks. I don't know. I don't know how all that math works. Like
We've lost to a lot of AFC teams though
one have
versus NFC.
yes, that is correct. Other than the what is it, the Packers and the Cowboys and the 49ers? Those are the
Yeah.
teams that we
So
lost to.
I don't know.
Um,
I would have to look into how that's all going to work out, but kind of counting the chickens before they hatch.
Right. So right now, I mean, our the only ways that we're going to get in is when the Vikings and the Packers kind of pack it up. Those are kind of the 2 teams that really are the ones that we would need a secure win from.
Yeah,
Vikings,
the Raiders.
obviously, they're just not any. I mean, it was 3-0 that they won against the Raiders 3-0. Like that was just abysmal. The Packers, they didn't look super great on offense. And so, now they're 6-7.
Don't you love, Zach, that we can score 31 points and lose and a team can win with 3? Doesn't that make you feel good?
I know, but I'm sure somewhere the Vikings had a really good game and the Rams had a really bad game or something like that. And I don't know.
Yeah, there's a universe where we pull off this win and the Vikings just lose 3-0, and we're the 6th seed right now.
This is true. But the Rams have, they have a moderately good schedule that kind of favors them a little bit more, going into these last 4 games, 3 games, last 4 games. So
Yeah.
obviously this week we have the Washington Commanders is our next competition that we have going. What do you think
Yeah,
about them?
the Commanders, their offense is very hot or cold, but their defense is hot garbage. So like it can become a shootout, but I don't. They just haven't gelled. Sam Howell has makes a lot of like really weird decisions with the ball. Sometimes
Yeah,
they're very turnover prone. So I think this is one of those games where if we start off hot, we can kind of get the ball rolling and kind of get a blowout going. But we have to start out hot, and this year we have struggled to do that. The Packers this week play the Bucks. That's going to be a relatively tough game for the Packers. The Panthers, they should win that. If the Packers lose to the Panthers, they deserve not to go to the playoffs. They should get kicked out right then and there. Um, and then the Packers play the Vikings and the Bears. So,
so they don't have the easiest schedule for themselves, I don't think. Ours obviously
but
come to the
we
Commanders, the Saints, the Giants, but Giants at home, and at 49ers.
we need to be one above them though. So that's the tough thing there.
Yeah,
Is
I mean, realistically, we need to win the last 3 of those 4. It'll be
yeah,
interesting to. Sorry.
so that Green Bay versus Vikings game is going to be a huge game. I think by then, the Vikings would have lost. Let's see, they play the Bengals. They should. I'd be very surprised if they beat the Bengals. Uh, they play the Bengals, the Lions twice, and the Packers. I'm going to be honest, Zach. I don't see the Vikings winning any of those to end the season. I would be surprised. Maybe they could squeeze off a win against the Lions because the Lions have been kind of, I don't know, like weird in the second half of the season. And then, of course, as we mentioned, the Seahawks, uh, they have a brutal end of the year. They play the Eagles next, the Titans, who did an upset against Miami, the Steelers, which really good defense. Their offense is atrocious. And then the Cardinals. Uh, yeah, I
I mean,
see the
assuming.
Seahawks maybe winning 1-2.
I mean, even if they tie the score with the Rams, I mean, the Rams win the tiebreaker. So
Not unless if it's a three. If it's a three-way tie, it goes into other tiebreakers because the NFL is silly.
yeah, but I think because we swept them, it defaults to us. If it was between us and the Seahawks.
Well, that's because division. I think division wins is the first tiebreaker, and that's why we go above them because they automatically what? They lost to the 49ers. Yeah, we have 4 division wins, and they have 4 division losses. So we do get the three-way tiebreaker over them in that case.
Yeah.
Let me look at the Vikings, see if we get the tiebreaker over them.
While you kind of talk about that, I want to kind of dive in a little bit about the Washington Redskins. I mean, it's headed by Ron Rivera. I mean, this team has not been operated very well, really for a long time now. They're trying to make something work, but somehow is doing a decent job of keeping them. He's 65% in his completion rate, but he's only averaging 6.8 yards per throw. He's had 18 touchdowns, but 14 interceptions. He's been sacked 58 times this season with a QB rating of 85.6. The running back, Brian Robinson Johnson, he has 160 carries, 664 yards, which is 20th in the league, 5 touchdowns, and averages about 4.2 yards per carry. And then their star wide receiver would be Terry McLaurin, 60 receptions, 694 yards, 2 touchdowns, and only averaging about 11.6 yards per reception. So, I mean, this game should be winnable. It is at home. We should have a home crowd. I know flights are very expensive to get to LA during this time period. So those Washington Commander fans, if they really want to fly out, they're going to be paying a premium price to fly. I know because I tried to get tried to find flights to go out to this game, but it should be a winnable game.
Yeah, they have a solid wide receiver core. Curtis Samuel is a solid wide receiver. Trying to think of the rookie from last year, second-year player. He's a solid wide receiver. I mean, again, their quarterback is young. It's his first year fully starting. I think he potentially could be a good player. He just is going through a lot of growing pains. And man, when it rains, it pours with him when it comes to turnovers. So I'm hoping the Rams can do that. Just pivoting back to the Vikings, they're 2-1 in their conference. So basically, they would have to lose. They would have to win out of their 4 remaining games, 3 of them is a 3 division to have the tiebreaker if we ended up tying. So as long as the Lions, they get 2 losses from both of the Lions games, or like one of the Lions games and the Packers, we would be set in that case. In theory, the Rams
Let's
would still want the Packers to lose there.
let's hope so. So here's a question for you. I'm going to put this down here, and I want everyone's thoughts down below in this comment section about this. Let's say the 49ers, they clinch their first round. They get the first round bye for the conference. Do you think that if it would mean that the Rams would not, the Rams have to win against the 49ers to get into the playoffs, do you think the 49ers would still start or hold back their starters, even though they already clinched the first round bye?
I think they would hold back. That would be asinine. That would be so stupid.
It would be interesting. It's an interesting theory only because, do you really want,
especially after last year when they lost 2 or 3 QBs, like, do you really want to go through that again? Because you lose Purdy, good luck trying to win in the first round or second round. Sure. Like, good luck, because whoever gets through there will probably be able to pull out a win against you.
Just an interesting theory.
I don't think they will. So, but I don't think they will need to anyways, because they won't have it locked up. I think that's going to be a race for the rest of the year. So
yeah, I'm hopeful. As much as I'm also not a 49er or a Cowboys fan or an Eagles fan, I really hope one of them takes it, because obviously we all don't want the 49ers to have the easiest path to get to the Super Bowl.
Oh, I really want them to win the first 1 seed, and I would love nothing more for the Rams to be the 7th seed, win on Wild Card Weekend, and go to Santa Clara. And if we beat them to go to the championship game, oh, that would be so sweet. So sweet, Zach.
Yes, it would. So leave your comments below. How do you think this rest of the season is going to be? Do you think the Rams are going to go in and finish off in the 7th seed, or do you think they could somehow sneak up into the 6th seed? Please leave those comments down below. I think really that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. It was another great episode, Ashton. It's always fun to get to do this to you. We're coming up on our 1 or 2 year anniversary of doing this podcast. How are you feeling about that?
Oh man, it's always a blast. We have definitely grown, gotten better, and I hope you guys see the results of that every week. It's buttery smooth. A lot of you guys don't see the amount of work we put on back end. Zach, you do a lot of great work. And it's a lot of fun. It's a good outlet for us to be able to vent, talk about, and kind of express our opinions in a artistic way. And we do it for you guys, the daily listeners or weekly listeners. Even if it's only 5 or 10, when it was a small number, like, we appreciated each one of you guys, and that's why we do it, and that's why we put in the work, and we put in the money too. Like, this isn't free, and we love doing it for you.
Yeah, it's just a great outlet, and it's been really fun being able to get to meet with you guys when we do get to go to games and build this cool community with other fellow Rams podcasters and entertainers and things like that. So continue to support us. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our YouTube page, youtube.com/@EastCoastRams. You can find us on X @EastCoastRams. You can find us on Threads. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us anywhere. You go to eastcoastrams.com and find all of the places that you can find us on all social platforms. We will be back next week to kind of recap the Washington game and then kind of preview the Thursday night football game against the Saints. 2 more games before Christmas. Then we get to have, a nice solid Christmas break before we go into New Year's with the Giants. So
yeah,
No,
you
go ahead.
we'll be able to talk about 2 Rams wins, go into Christmas nice and happy, and be able to eat, enjoy presents, especially the presents we get for Ram stuff, and come back with all our new swag ready to take on the Giants.
I'm all ready for my new Ram swag. I can always use more Ram swag. All right, everybody. Well, you guys stay safe out there. And, we look forward to another Rams victory this Sunday. And as always, whose house? Rams
Rams
house.
house.